What's going on, everyone? It's me, Lone, and off the back of last week's video about legendary weapons in Fallout 76, today, as promised, I'm uploading a video about legendary armor in the game. We're going to be going through all the kinds of legendary effects that you can get for regular armor in Fallout 76, and I'll be explaining, exactly what each of them do, and then I'll categorize them or list them in different tiers based on my opinion in terms of what I think are like the best legendary effects, the mid-tier legendary effects, and the lower legendary effects. And this is not based on any kind of hard science. Again, it's just based on my personal experience from what I see of, other players wanting in the community when it comes to trading different kinds of armor in the game. It's purely my personal opinion, but I think, especially for you newer players out there, it's going to give a bit of a guide in terms of what armor you should be looking out for when you do pick it up, or even when you're rolling new armor, like when it comes to the Secret Service armor. And I just want to say before we get to the guide, thank you so much to all of you that did subscribe after I mentioned it in last week's video. There was like 900 of you in a single day that subscribed to the channel, so I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. If you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to. I would really appreciate the support. Again, I am linking the Fallout Wiki in the description below because it really nicely lists out all the legendary effects for armor in the game, as it does for weapons as well. But with all that out of the way, let's go through all of the legendary effects for armor in the game, and I'll explain which ones I think are the best. Let's do it. Alrighty, so like last week, we're in the Word document. Here are all the legendary effects when it comes to armor in Fallout 76. Again, this information is straight from the Fallout Wiki, so please keep that in mind. But we'll, of course, start with the prefix modifiers, or the main legendary effects. Essentially, these are the first star when it comes to legendary armor in the game. And then we'll move on to the major modifiers, or the second star for legendary armor. And then, of course, finishing with the minor modifiers, or the third star for legendary armor. And there are some additional notes again from the Fallout Wiki for the minor modifiers that we do need to keep in mind, and we'll get to that. Some other things that you should bear in mind as well. The goal here is to try and get the best possible combination of legendary effects for each of your pieces of armor. So you want to try and get the best possible legendary effect for your character and for your build from here, and then the best one from here for your build, and then the best one from here. And of course, you're trying to get 3 stars or 3 legendary effects. That doesn't mean that a single star legendary armor is necessarily bad, or that just a 2-star is necessarily bad. It just depends on the legendary effect in question and whether it's suited for your character. But of course, if you can get a 3-star legendary piece of armor with all of the best effects for your character, then you're laughing. That's what you really want to get. So keep that in mind too. And finally, no, not finally, the second last thing, of course, you can equip 5 different pieces of armor. So you've got your left arm, your right arm, your chest, your left leg, and your right leg. So you don't necessarily need to get the exact same legendary effects across all of those across all of those armor pieces. Some people in the game do like to get various legendary effects to give their character a bit of balance, to ensure that their build is well-rounded. So that's something to keep in mind. But other players in the game that are typically trying to min-max their builds, they're trying to get the exact same legendary effects as much as possible across all of their pieces of legendary armor. For the most part, there might be some deviation here and there, but like for instance, if you're rocking a bloodied melee build, you're really trying to get all of your pieces to be unyielding, right? Across all of your pieces of legendary armor. But you might have some difference, like you might want most of them to be increasing AP refresh speed, but you might want 1 or 2 of them to have some poison resistance, to give you some poison resistance against like sting wings and certain enemies in the game, to ensure you don't die so quickly. So yeah, you don't necessarily need them all to be the same, but it just depends on your character and what you're trying to go for. And finally, the colors that I have here, let's describe them a little bit. So just like last week, the ones that are listed in green are the legendary effects that I think are the best in that category, the ones that you should really be aiming for. The ones that are in yellow are the ones that I think that are mid-tier, that aren't great, but they're still good, and you shouldn't necessarily throw them away if you get them. And then the ones that aren't colored at all, or that are in white, are the legendary effects that I think are kind of lower tier, the ones that you could probably feel more comfortable scripting if you just get all of these white, especially legendary effects. Again, Again, my personal opinion, some of these can change. That some of these were like, I could go yellow or white with them, but I'll explain them when I get to them. Anyways, let's start finally with describing all the legendary effects for armor in the game, starting of course with Assassins. Now, Assassins means that your legendary armor piece has a 75% chance to reduce damage by 8% from players. Of course, this is very PvP specific. If you do not engage in PvP in Fallout 76, this legendary effect is not going to be any use for you. If you do engage in PvP from time to time, then Assassins might be one that you want to consider, even if it's just for like 1 or 2 of your legendary pieces of armor. So that's why I have it listed in white, because it's not useful to PvE at all. Then you have Auto Stim. Automatically uses Stim Pack while health is 25% or less, once every 60 seconds. Now there is a perk card, I think it's called Born Survivor, that essentially is this effect. So that's why it's listed in white. You don't see people looking for auto stim that often, especially as well, like if you're a bloodied build like I am and you have auto stim on, or even Born Survivor on, like literally as soon, like if you have your radiation all the way to keep your health at 19%, right? And then as soon as you lose a little bit of health, you use the stim pack straight away. And it's not necessarily the best thing that you want, in my opinion, but if that's not your character and it's a long firefight and you're sustaining damage and you're using a stim pack automatically once every 60 seconds, then maybe that's not so bad. But also I like to have control when it comes to using my stim packs in the game. So that's why I don't go with auto stim, and that's why I think it's white. But again, it's just situational, right? Then we're getting to one of the second tier or the mid-tier legendary effects, Bolstering. Bolstering is something that you should consider if you're running a bloodied build in the game. It means that your legendary piece of armor grants you up to 35 energy resistance and damage resistance the lower your health. That can add up, especially when you have multiple pieces of bolstering armor. And again, because it's the lower your health, it's really suited for bloodied builds out there. So I used to have a couple pieces of bolstering armor when it came to my bloody build, just to have a bit more resistance. And it's not just damage resistance, it's also energy resistance as well. So like when you're fighting super mutants and they're shooting you with laser rifles, that's something that's going to help you. It's probably not like I think unyielding for a bloodied build is definitely better. So it's definitely not like the main legendary piece of armor that you should equip across all of your pieces when you're rocking a bloodied build. But maybe 1 or 2 or maybe 3 of your pieces could be bolstering, just depending on what you want to do. So I think bolstering is good, especially if you have a bloodied build, so keep that in mind. Then you have Chameleon. So Chameleon means that you blend in with the environment when you're sneaking and not moving. This can be good for a sneak build, of course. It's not one of the best legendary effects out there, but I do see people asking for Chameleon from time to time on trading forums. I don't have the most experience with it, but I can see why it is useful if you're trying to run a sneak build, because you get so much damage from sneak killing enemies in the game, especially with VATS. So Chameleon is definitely something to consider for you sneak players out there. Cloaking. So when you're hit in melee, it generates a stealth field once per 30 seconds. I don't see people using this, and I've never used it, but just based on the description, I see Chameleon's probably better because it's situational, right? You have to be hit for the stealth field to be generated. Wouldn't you rather just stay stealthy before you actually engage in the firefight, rather than being in the firefight, getting hit, having that stealth field activate, and then you're stealthy? Like to me, try and go for Chameleon, not cloaking. I don't see many people looking for cloaking pieces of armor. Exterminators. So you receive less damage from Mirelurks and bugs. Not that good. Mirelurks and bugs aren't the most dangerous enemies out there. Maybe a Mirelurk King and a Mirelurk Queen, but you're not really trying to face them on a consistent basis. There aren't any significant events in the game, at least the ones that I play, that are really focused around Mirelurks and bugs that are really hard to kill. There are some out there, but yeah, I would say Exterminators is a lower tier in the game. Ghoul Slayers, less damage from ghouls. Ghouls are even less deadly, I would say, than Mirelurks, because you've got the Mirelurk Queen and King, of course. But maybe if you're fighting ghouls a lot, maybe for Radiation Rumble, but I would still say that that's lower tier. Hunters, again, less damage from animals. I would say that those 3 and even the one for Mutant Slayers, less damage from super mutants, typically aren't the ones that you want to go for. Troubleshooters, in my opinion, is an exception, and I'll get to that, but Exterminators, Ghoul Hunters, Ghoul Slayers, Hunters, and Mutants, and Mutant Slayers, probably not the best legendary effects in the game when it comes to armor. But then you've got life saving. So life saving, I do think, is a good mid-tier one. So when you're incapacitated, you gain a 50% chance to revive yourself with a stim pack once every minute. Even if you have one piece of life-saving legendary armor, it's great. Like, you get a 50% chance to revive yourself if you get downed, especially if you're a bloodied build when you might get downed frequently. Having one piece, just a single piece of life-saving, can get you back in the action. So it's something to consider. I don't rock it, but I can see the usefulness for it in the game. So that's why I see some people wanting to trade for those pieces of armors in the game. Mutants. So you gain plus 10 damage resistance and energy resistance if you are mutated. Honestly, like, everyone is mutated, yes, of course, mostly anyways, so everyone would really be able to benefit from mutants armor in the game, but you can get better damage and energy resistance from bolstering or from vanguards. So, like, why would you go with mutants? I would say don't go with mutants, honestly, because there are better armor pieces that you can go for. I mentioned Mutant Slayers. I don't think it's that good because it's just less damage from super mutants. Nocturnal is, you don't want to really use it, to be honest, because it's very situational. It needs to be nighttime, and if you're in the daytime, it's even worse. So yeah, don't use a Nocturnal. Regenerating. You slowly regenerate health while out of combat. There is a mutation that negates this legendary effect. It's not serving you any use when you're actually in combat. You want to try and get a legendary effect that in combat is giving you a benefit. So I wouldn't use regenerating, and if anything, I would just use that mutation. What is it called? I can't remember. Anyways, troubleshooters. So the reason why I put this in yellow is because I think everybody in the game should have a full set of troubleshooters armor, and that is just because of Encrypted. Encrypted is an event, if you've played it. It's with the Imposter Sheep Squatch and a bunch of robots in the game. That Imposter Sheep Squatch, with its laser beam attack from its head, it wrecks you. It can wreck you so fast. And having a full set of troubleshooters for each of your pieces of armor that reduces, damage from robots by 15%, etc. It really helps you in Encrypted. It really helps you in that event. So I don't even try and run Encrypted anymore on my side. Like, I'll just wait until someone spawns it in the world. But when someone does, I'll go to my stash, get all my troubleshooters armor, and equip it because it's going to help me survive in that event. So yeah, that's why I think troubleshooters is yellow. Very situational, of course, but everyone should have a full set, in my personal opinion. And then you've got the heavy hitters, the top tier legendary effects for armor in the game. Unyielding, of course, for your bloody builds out there, you gain up to +3 to all stats except endurance when you're low health. So your strength, perception, luck, intelligence, charisma, everything but endurance goes up to +3. Unyielding is so good, man. Like, there's so many benefits that it gives you when you're rocking a bloodied build, even if you're not necessarily a melee bloodied build, because of course if you're melee and you're getting +3 to your strength for all of your pieces, you're getting crazy damage with your melee weapon, right? But even if you're just using regular weapons, for instance, the increase to agility that it gives you so much AP for VATS. Like, I use VATS like crazy now because I have so much agility. So that's one benefit. Also, you get more intelligence. So that gives you more XP, which is really helping you for the legendary run season because of that repeatable weekly XP challenge. Like, every 10,000 XP you get I think it's 100 score or something like that. So that's really good. And then you have, like, there's just so many effects, okay? Charisma, if you have higher charisma, you get more XP for group events. Strength, if you have more strength, you have a higher carry weight. Unyielding is great for you bloodied builds, even if you're not melee bloodied. So if you are rocking a bloodied build, most, if not all of your pieces of armor should be unyielding, and maybe 1 or 2 pieces, in my opinion, of bolstering, if you're worried about your survivability. And then Vanguards. Vanguards is the opposite. So the higher your health, you get up to 35 damage and energy resistance for each of your pieces of armor. So this is for you builds out there that are rocking a full health build. So this is very good. Like, if you have all of your pieces vanguards and you have higher health, you are just a tank, man. Like, think about it. 35, 35, 35, 35, 35 for both damage and energy resistance, and you have full health. Like, when are you dying? Never. So if you're not a bloodied build, you're probably a vanguards build. That's typically how it goes. So it's one of those two that you're really trying to choose, at least when it comes to your main prefix modifier legendary effects for your armor. And then finally, weightless. It weighs 90% less and does not count as armor for the chameleon mutation. Weightless is fine if you really want to try and utilize the chameleon mutation, but I would still say it's lower tier. And then zealous is another one of those category specific legendary effects, so you get less damage from scorched. So is it that great? I don't think so. I think there are better legendary effects out there. So to summarize, unyielding and vanguards is what you really want to be aiming for, and then maybe like one life saving to bolster your build, bolstering to bolster your build, pardon the pun, troubleshooters for encrypted, and then chameleon if you want to utilize sneak a lot. So again, that's just my personal opinion, but I think that covers it nicely. Let's move on to the major modifiers, or the second star for legendary armor in the game. I've been recording for a long time. Anyways, these are the ones that I think could have gone either way. So we'll start with agility. Actually, you know what? I'm going to cover all of the ones that boost your special stats. So you've got a +1 agility, +1 endurance, +1 intelligence, +1 luck, +1 charisma, +1 perception, +1 strength. So for your major modifiers, when it comes to your legendary armor, the second star, you can get something that boosts each of these special attributes by 1. Now, as a general rule, just increasing a single special attribute by 1 is not that great. It is giving you some benefits, and I've listed them here. So when it comes to agility, you get more AP as your max. You get a better sneak rating. For endurance, you get better health, a better sprint AP drain. For intelligence, you get, again, as I mentioned, you get better experience points. You get better scrapping yield. For luck, you get better VATS critical gain per attack, and I'm mentioning some of the good ones here. For strength, of course, you get better carry weight and better melee damage. Perception, you get better VATS accuracy. So yes, when you increase the number of your, like the level of your special attribute by 1, you are improving those specific variables there. But because it's only 1, it's not that good. In my opinion, in this second category of major modifiers here, you really, really, really want to be aiming for either poisoners or powered. That's my personal opinion. There are other ones that I'll mention as I go through these that, if you get them, they're not bad, and you should totally use it, especially if your first legendary effect or your third legendary effect is really good. But really, you want these two. That's my personal opinion. So let's start with agility. So +1 agility, you get more AP and a better sneak rating. I would say that for these two, getting more AP is not bad. As I mentioned before, with unyielding and more agility, it means you have more AP for VATS, and more AP for sprinting, of course. But it's just +1, so it could have gone to white, but I listed it as yellow just because of those variables. Antiseptic, you get 25% environmental disease resistance. Look, that's the least of your concern when it comes to disease. I would say I get more disease when it comes to enemies hitting me in the game, rather than from the environment. So, and even if you do get diseased, like, you just use a disease cure, or you can live with it. Like, most diseases in the game aren't that bad. There are some ones that you should try and fix straight away, but I would say antiseptic is lower tier. Charisma, +1 charisma, so you get more XP and caps from group events, and that's just from turning them in. So that's why I think the +1 charisma is white. It's definitely white. Like, I was not even considering putting this at yellow or second tier. Endurance, I do have this at yellow because it gives you more health, and it might help you if you're a bloodied build especially. And it could have gone to white, but I put it at yellow. Hazmat, you get +25 radiation resistance. I would say this is probably one of the best mid-tier second star legendary effects for armor, because that increase of radiation resistance, it's not going to help you in a severely irradiated area, in my opinion, or in a nuke zone. You're going to die if you're not in power armor, essentially, or like the Chinese stealth suit or whatever it's called. But it's nice. Like, it's nice when a ghoul hits you and you don't get as irradiated, right? It's a nice little boost, and 25 is not insignificant. So that's why I think it's one of the better yellow or second tier ones. Intelligence, I do have listed as yellow because of the scrapping yield and especially the boost in experience that it gives you. Again, that's more relevant nowadays than ever because of the legendary run this season. And everyone's trying to get all the rewards for that. But it's only +1. So again, it could have gone white, but I left that at yellow. +1 luck, you get your looted item condition can be better, and you get VATS critical gain per attack is better. So per attack, you get more VATS critical filling up your meter. But again, it's just +1, so I left it as yellow for those reasons. Perception. +1 perception means your VATS accuracy is a little bit better. It's like point something better, like 0.4 or 0.5. It's tiny, so it's very, very small. And then your compass distance, so like you notice enemies on your compass from a further distance, I should say, but it's only +1, so I left that as white. I was happy for that not to even be yellow like the others. Poisoners, top tier. Okay, I reckon, especially if you're a bloodied build, you want at least a couple of your pieces of armor to have poison resistance, because poison resistance can wreck you, man. And this is one of the few sources of poison resistance when it comes to armor in the game. So very good. Just 25, like just one that's, you know, just poison resistance. It's not helping you out the most. You really want to have at least 2, preferably more, but even having 1, you'll take it, right? So poisoners is very good, especially for your bloodied builds out there. Powered, increase AP refresh speed, probably the best second tier, sorry, the best major modifier for the 2nd star for legendary armor. If you have multiple of these, your AP increases like ridiculous amounts. I have 3 different Secret Service armor pieces, each with powered or increases of AP refresh speed. My AP goes like this, man. It's awesome. It's great. Helps you in VATS. Helps you if you have dodged, because it's dependent upon how much AP you have. Great effect. You should totally use it. And strength. Strength is probably the one that I would not have considered to go to white, because even though it's +1 strength, it gives you a boost to your carry weight, which is very important, of course, for a lot of you out there. And if you're a melee bloodied user, it's just another boost to your melee damage. So I would take, if I was especially a bloodied melee build and I rolled a piece of legendary armor that had strength, I would take it. Like, I wouldn't be mad about that, but there are better ones that you can get, of course. So those are the major modifiers. Let's move on to the final minor modifiers, or the third stars for legendary armor in the game. I've been speaking for too long. Keep in mind that when it comes to the reduction of weight legendary effects, so like the reduced ammo weight, the reduced food, reduced junk, etc. Keep in mind this description here, alright? It says that the weight reduction effects from armor stack up to 90% for each item type instead of complete 100% reduction. When used with any weight reduction perk, the cap remains at 90% reduced rate. The reduction effects are additive, but do not exceed a 90% reduction. So what this essentially means when it comes to these ones is that even if you had 5 pieces of legendary armor with reduced ammo weight, 5 times 20% is technically 100, but you're not going to get 100% reduction to your ammo. You're going to get 90. It caps at 90. Also as well, you have some perk cards that give you the same effect, like that give you reduction to your junk and your food and all that kind of stuff. So even if you had those perk cards equipped and some of these legendary effects, the cap is still going to be 90, okay? So keep that in mind. You can't just stack all of these together and think you're going to have like literally weightless ammo or weightless chems. It doesn't work like that. The cap is 90%. So it does... I don't think it makes them completely useless, but it's just something to keep in mind. So let's start with Acrobats. It reduces your falling damage by 50%. I think this is really good. It negates the need for you to use Cushioned, the Cushion mod for your legs when it comes to armor. So you can use something else that would more benefit you. So if I got an Acrobats piece of armor, I would totally take that. I would be happy because everyone uses Marsupial and a lot of people at least have a jetpack. So reducing your falling damage by 50% for one piece of armor, that's great, right? So I think Acrobats is a strong mid-tier 3rd legendary effect. Cavaliers, reduce damage while blocking by 15%. I still think this is good, but it's only active when you're blocking, and you want to try and not be blocking a lot when you're in a combat, like in a fight. You want to try and be shooting, or you want to try and be swinging your melee weapon as much as possible. You'll block when you need to, maybe more so if you have this legendary effect, but I would say it's not the best. But still something you'd take, right? Cavaliers, one of the top tier ones. I wouldn't say it's the top tier one, but it's still very good. You have a 75% chance to reduce damage by 15% while sprinting. So if you're in a bind, if you're in trouble in your fight, and you're running away to try and get away from it, you have a 75% chance, it's very high, 75% chance to reduce damage by 15% when you're sprinting. And then of course you can have multiple of them with this legendary effect, so you're reducing your damage even more. So it's something that I rolled and I will absolutely take. It's not as good as the one down here, but it's still very good, so I would definitely take this legendary effect. Divers, so Divers grants you the ability to breathe underwater. Do you want this? Probably not. Like, how often are you trying to breathe on the water? If you do it a lot, then maybe one of your pieces should have this legendary effect, but I would say that there are way better third effects out there. And the same goes for durability. Even though your armor would have 50% more durability than normal, it doesn't cost you much to repair armor, especially if you have all the junk in the world and you've been playing this game for a while, or if you have a bunch of repair kits because you run a bunch of Scorched Beast Queen runs. So durability not the best, divers not the best, that's why they're listed in white. Improved sneaking, this is very good. So you become harder to detect while sneaking. If you're running a sneaking build out there, this is something that you should absolutely keep in mind. Again, especially if you have multiple pieces with improved sneaking. So now it comes to all of the reduction ones. So reduction of ammo weight by 20%, reduction of food, drink, and chem weights by 20%, reduction of junk weights by 20%. These are the ones, there's another one there, but I think that's a different tier. These three, I think they're good. They're solid third effects to have. Like, if you roll 2 really good stars and then your third one was a ammo reduction one or a junk reduction one, like, you would take it, right? Like, I have an ammo reduction one and my ammo now weighs 20% less and it helps me with my carry weight. So take them. They're good. They're solid mid-tier legendary effects, but there are better third effects out there. Especially because, again, there are perk cards that can negate the need for these third legendary effects. But they're still very good. Reduce limb damage. I think this is very good. Receiving 15% limb damage. Again, I think there is a perk card that negates the need for this. But I don't like to equip the perk card, and having a piece of legendary armor that has this reduction of limb damage, I think it's nice. It's not the best, but it's nice to have, especially when you have multiple pieces of it. So something that you should keep an eye out for, in my opinion. Reduction of ammo of weapon weight. So you reduce your weapon weights by 20%. Very good. Like, even though it's just like these ones, typically weapons weigh more. And sometimes people like to use a lot of weapons, or have a lot of weapons on their person so they can swap whenever they need to. So having your weapon weights reduced by 20%, I would say it's very good. It's probably not comparable to the next one we're about to talk about, but it's still very good in my opinion. It's still something that a lot of people are keeping in mind, even if it's just for 1 or 2 pieces of the legendary armor pieces. And then we got Sentinels. I would say this is the best. Probably the best, in my opinion. You have a 75% chance to reduce damage by 15% while standing still. I can't stress how good this legendary effect is. One of the most highly sought after, especially because, again, you can stack it with multiple pieces. A 75% chance, like 3/4 chance to reduce damage while you're standing still is so good in a fight. All you do is you stand still and shoot enemies. And if they hit you, you have a 75% chance to reduce damage by 15%. Very good. Like, I can't stress enough how good Sentinels is. You should really aim for this as a 3rd-star legendary effect. And of course, multiple versions of them. And it does mean that you need to change how you fight. Like, if you're a melee build, for instance, you can't be running around meleeing. You'd really have to wait for enemies to come to you to be able to make this effective. But I would still say it's good. Like, if you're fighting a bunch of ghouls, you just stand there and swipe as they come at you, right? But for some other enemies, it's not so good. So, but very good. probably the best. And finally, safe crackers. So increases the size of sweet spot while picking locks. Not the best. Like, yeah, like how often are you picking locks and you can still pick a lock without this? I would say try and avoid this one. Woo, we're done. All right, let's get to the camera. Let's finish this video. Alrighty, Wastelanders, that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comments below if there's anything else that I can clarify. And until next time, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourselves, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.